You're listening to Antiviral Frontiers with your host, Rick Kiessig. In this episode, Rick is joined by Assistant Professor Matae Ahn, a researcher whose work is focused on the unique immunology of bats and how bat biology may inform human health and longevity.
Okay, welcome to Antiviral Frontiers. I'm Rick Kiessig. My guest today is Matae Ahn. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
To begin, can you tell us a little about yourself and your current areas of interest?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Matae Ahn. So I'm actually genetically South Korean. Okay, I was born there. My parents are Korean, so pure genetically Korean, but epigenetically I'm Chinese. Okay, I grew up in China, in Beijing. And the 50% of the epigenetics now belong to Singapore. So I have been in Singapore for the last 10 plus years. I think that summarizes my kind of genetic and epigenetics and my life history. Yeah, so my area of interest is really on bats. That was very important. My decision or life-changing events about 15 years ago. To be exact, it's about 12 years ago. I met the Batman, Professor Wang Linfa, very famous in virology field, who challenged me to study bats as a medical student. So then I was pretty convinced that, and I was very excited that what about learning from bats and then why they get infected without getting sick. And one day I can translate that findings to human benefit, meaning to allow human to be more resistant to disease. Yeah, so as a medical student, it's a very big gamble to do that, to study bats and then try to benefit human. But it was such an important important decision for me. So since then, I have been studying bats, and in particular, not the bat viruses, not the viruses they carry, but rather the bat itself, meaning the biology and especially immunology of the bats, and to study their response to viruses. So that's my main area. But now, going beyond that, I also study the overall biology of bats, meaning why they not only they don't get sick easily, they also live long without chronic disease that humans suffer. So now I'm asking the next $1 million question, hopefully, is that why they live long and healthy, and whether we can learn from them to allow us to do the same. Yeah, so it's
Sounds
aging
like
area as well. Yeah,
fascinating area of research. Can you give us a little summary of what you've learned so far about bats and human health and viruses?
Certainly. So I think from the last 10 years, we have been focusing on bat immunology. So the main finding, I would say the number one important finding so far is that they have naturally evolved to dampen inflammation. Yeah, so I'm sure most people know that in this audience that inflammation is the driver for many diseases. Yeah, and every single organ of us, our organs can have inflammation, leading to disease in human. Okay, so in bats, we found that the inflammation threshold is really high, and they achieved that in a very impressive manner. Meaning, the inflammation pathway I studied called inflammasome. So that was pretty new pathway. It was not even written in the textbook when I was in medical school, but now recently they did. Yeah, so it's a new pathway proven to be very important for many human disease. Bats have dampened that within many ways, multiple ways, to really so that this inflammation never go overboard, right? So this is control of the inflammation. So that is, I think, one of the key finding we have, and there's some of the secrets how they did it have already converted to a new class of inflammation drug, anti-inflammation drug, currently under development with the company. Yeah, so that's pretty much my dream, right? So learn from bats to benefit human. So that's ongoing, and so that's our foundation, and we are now going beyond inflammation to look at other aspects of the bat biology as well.
Are there differences in innate immunity in bats versus humans, in the way that innate immunity works?
Yeah. So you mentioned very important keywords. Yeah. So the inflammasome pathway I mentioned is actually a part of innate immunity. And a little bit on innate, right? So I'm sure this audience all know innate and adaptive, but the reason
Yeah.
why we are particularly interested in innate immunity in bats, more than the adaptive, is that the real phenotype. The important is about the observation and phenotype in scientific discovery, right? So in our bats, in both natural infection and also experimental infection, the key difference is that they can get infected like us, and the viral title can go really high in the tissue and in the blood. Okay, but the
Okay.
key thing is when we are acutely sick, such as COVID-19 or flu, right? We are going to suffer, right, during the acute
Yeah.
phase, right? So, but that acute phase, despite the high viral load, bats do not get sick and they don't have the pathology that we usually see in human lungs or human tissue. So that is really important. I think that the important key is that the innate immune response that is immediate, that is acute, that is very different. I
Hmm.
cannot say that adaptive is not different, but I'm just saying the innate must be different. Yeah, so
Yeah.
our focus has been innate. Among the innate, inflammasome showing is one of the key innate inflammation pathway. There are many other pathways, but inflammation is one of the key. Yeah, that's how we focus on that, and we believe that some of the innate, including inflammasome, is dampened, and some of the innate pathway, such as interferon, can be enhanced. And so this
Okay.
is a balance. So it has to be a balance, and we are learning from the bats how they balance differently from us, right?
Right.
So
So what happens with viruses in bats? Let's say you have an RNA virus that's would normally be in lytic replication, let's say in a cell in a bat. Does it not like fully lyse the cell afterwards, or does it lyse the cell and just that the lysis afterwards doesn't provoke inflammation in the same way that it does in humans, or is that known about how that works?
very good question. Very good question. So let me break it down. So I guess so for the first of all, the first misconception, or rather first clarification, is that many people thought that bat coexist with virus, meaning chronic infection, like HIV. So that's
Yeah.
not true. That's not true. So most of the famous or infamous virus the bat carries, including coronavirus, filovirus, which is including Ebola, they are all
Right.
acute RNA viruses, right? So
Yep.
they're causing acute infection, and they do the same for bats, right? So that's my first clarification. So they do get infected, and they do clear the virus with this I would say not identical but comparable kinetics. So they do have a peak and then they clear. It's not like they carry the virus forever. So that's the
Okay.
first thing. So they are still acute. But the reason why they become a good viral reservoir is that they don't get sick and they can keep transmitting them among the population, within the population, just like our SARS-CoV-2 does. We are all well, asymptomatic or low, very small, very low symptom. We are still active, so we transmit to all the families and friends. So that's a good analogy, right? So that's my first clarification. The second clarification, you're actually going down to cellular level, which is a very detailed level. So that in the cellular level or at the tissue level, I'm still going back to my key discovery, which is the inflammasome dampening. Inflammasome causes one type of cell death called pyroptosis. Pyroptosis is a lytic, which answer your question, lysis, lytic cell death, and it's
Yeah.
programmed, right?
Yep.
So there's a programmed lytic pro-inflammatory cell death. So inflammasome is so dampened with so many mechanisms of dampening, the cell death will not happen. So that's my first experiment as a PhD. I throw all kind of inflammasome ligand, including viruses such as MERS coronavirus. At that time, it's epidemic. Yeah,
Yeah.
so in a BSL-3. So I treated with so many ligand, more than 10, including viruses. None of them cause cell death. So that's my first finding, which is very frustrating because I mean, in a bad research, you don't have tools and we don't have a good reagents and don't have good material. Negative result can be technical error or called cell quality problem. So yeah, my first my main job was that to convince myself that's a true negative result. So you are right. So the cell death, in particular, apoptosis, is lacking. And because of that, the consequence of this lytic cell death are also significantly dampened. So because with that lytic cell death, there will be a lot of inflammation, recruiting a lot of immune cells. There will be a vicious cycle. So that seems to
Right.
be broken, or rather stopped in bats. Yeah, so that potentially
Okay.
contribute to lack of immunopathology.
Okay. So it's mostly on the inflammasome or apoptosis side as opposed to, say, um, protein kinase R or things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Or
so
APAF or
yes, so you're asking about other innate pathways. So I mean, I'm very biased,
yeah,
as you can see. The
yeah,
reason I'm biased is because there's a lot of difference between species. So
sure.
it's really pretty hard to tell whether this small difference or that difference is really contributing to the phenotypes. And
Yeah.
therefore, I only emphasize inflammasome because the finding of inflammasome is not only convincing by saying because they have so many mechanisms, and also that mechanisms are conserved across all the bats we have examined, meaning tens
Mm.
of hundreds of bats. Right. So this is very convenient. So we call it pan-bat phenomenon, meaning
Okay.
all the bats have done the same thing or similar thing. Therefore, we think that's very important for bat adaptation to flight and their survival and their success.
Yeah.
In contrast, the other one you mentioned, like PKR or toll-like receptor,
Yeah.
intracellular, pattern PPR, pattern
Hmm.
recognition,
Yep.
PRR, pattern recognition. All these, there's a tons of quite a few paper by now. So there's some difference in this species, that species, but there's not so far. There's no such a conserved one that across all bats. So it's hard to argue whether they are important, but I'm sure there will be some significance within the species. And again, the conclusion is that certain things are dampened, certain things are
Hmm.
enhanced. No, there's no very, very universal pattern yet, but there's only one additional universal pattern in addition to inflammasome is STING pathway, STING. Yeah,
Okay.
so STING was we published with our collaborator published in Cell Whole Micro many years ago, showing that there's a very specific mutation leading to dampened STING pathway in the bats. So yeah, so that is also related to a host response, right? A viral host
Okay.
response. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Do,
So
do
that's
you think body temperature plays a role? But bats
mm,
have a higher body temperature because
yeah,
they're
yeah,
flying and all that, high
very
metabolism.
totally. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
another popular theory. Uh, I'm a clinician by training. I didn't mention. So I was an internal medicine physician until end of last year.
Okay.
I recently gave up my residency, the clinical training, to do bat research. That's how much I love bat research.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So I just took out my faculty position because I couldn't deal with the heavy clinical training and heavy research, exciting research at the same time. Yeah. So as a clinician, we all know that the bat's temperature go up to 41 degree and above during flight. Yeah. So that temperature kill you. Right? No need to go 41, 38.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that kill you and at the same time kill the virus probably. So I don't know which one kill faster, but you both will be killed. Yeah, so that's a completely separate topic though. But you are right.
Yeah.
The high temperature probably can help to control the virus a little bit, maybe to some extent, and that will kill the usual human as well. But I don't think that's the predominant reason. The reason we say that is in our experimental infection, including in Singapore, previously in Australia when Lympha did it in Australia, the national facility. Uh, they are not flying, right? They are in a cave. They are in a very constrained cage. They don't have
Okay.
they cannot freely fly. In our Singapore, we can even restrain them to a small cage called shoebox cage. They cannot fly at all, like zero flight.
Okay.
Yeah, so we challenge them still with the viruses, not just viruses. Now we are doing other crazy stuff like such as like a diet, special diet, or even drugs. They are really still resistant, regardless
Are they? Even
of
if
the
they don't
flight.
fly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very important control. Of course, without that, I will not even tell you with any confidence. We cannot dissect, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so we believe that. So that's one evidence suggesting that if flights might not be dependent on flight, but must be dependent on flight when in terms of this overall genetic changes, in terms of the how it happened. We believe this is something I cannot prove for you, but we believe that the reason why bats have all these genetic changes allow them to be so successful and so resistant to viral disease is because they had to adapt to flight at the start. When they evolved flight, it's
I
such a
see.
stressful, right? Just imagine we can fly tomorrow, right? It's pretty
Yeah.
cool, but it's extremely stressful. Imagine the temperature, the inflammation, the heart rate is going. We cannot handle them. So you must have a drastic biological changes to survive. So that is dependent on flight. But after that change has happened, it's no longer dependent on flight. So that's my sort of my view. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, very interesting. What about longevity? How does that factor into bat physiology and evolution?
Yeah. So that's actually on my second main interest now. As many people might know, bats are statistically living long, right? So I one fun fact I as recently very love to share is that 19 mammal outlive human, right? After normalizing the body size. We know
Okay.
that the bigger the body size, the longer the lifespan. So we normalize it. After that, then most of the mammals are living as expected, around the same, right? So, but 19 mammals outlive human, but we are actually outliving our expected lifespan because of healthcare. We
Hmm.
used to live 30, 40 years, for our
Yeah.
ancestors. And because of doctors like me or like scientists like us. So the 19 members do not have the healthcare, right? Still outliving human significantly. So 18 of them are bats, right? So
Oh, wow.
that's a pretty, I mean, this is a pretty strong statistic, just that people have not noticed it as much because of the coronavirus, COVID. These are catching more
Yeah.
attention. So I have caught this. This already caught me long ago, and now my whole lab is focusing on why they bat live long for anti-aging aspect. So back to the aging. So I think this is the same as the series. The hypothesis is the same as the viral disease or antiviral disease kind of hypothesis, because we don't believe that are just lucky, that are just
Yeah.
born to be lucky and live long and healthy without getting disease.
Right.
I think it's the same theory. So we believe it's still adaptation to flight. Flight is the single most unique phenotype that distinguish bats from all other mammals. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think I go back to my same example, inflammasome, right? So inflammasome have two major impact. So number one, less inflammation, less viral disease or virus pathology. Number two, because when we get older, the inflammation become excessive and the threshold become lower. So we tend to get more inflammation. Yeah, so that's one of the key reasons why we get so many chronic diseases such as dementia, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease and so on. And inflammation play a key role in all of this. Yeah, so you can see that the adaptation to flight may have already dampened the inflammasome because they don't want to kill by themselves by over-inflammation during adaptation to flight. But that same adaptation have lead to two positive consequences, positive result. One is more resistant to virus, no, not just viral disease to be exact, and also happen to live longer because they can also reduce many age-related disease.
Right.
Yeah, so you can skip. I give you this one clear example, and I believe that BAT have done in many different ways to achieve this, and the adaptation must be very complicated. So inflammation is just one of their key mechanisms, and I want to really figure out the rest of them, and many of them might be even much more influential and significant than the inflammasome discovery.
You think there's been some talk in humans about like the role of CMV and immunosenescence and talk about just things like chronic infection from those sorts of viruses adversely affecting human lifespan. Do you think that may be a role here in bats? That's something like that in fact, there's a more direct relationship between viral infection and longevity, or is it known?
I see. That part I do not. At first, I want to say that I don't have a very strong evidence, so disclaimer,
Yeah,
right? So this is more my personal opinion. But I'll
sure.
say that exposure to all these acute or chronic viruses shouldn't allow them to live longer, right? That is actually a risk factor, I call it. So I always say that bats are living long, not as expected. Actually, it's unexpected, right? They are
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
all their features are against longevity. So you mentioned one, so they are exposed to so many viruses, including the Q1. And actually, you are right. The chronic one, like HSV, herpes virus, and some of those chronic viruses, they actually also carry a lot. I think they just don't bother by them, right? So they are not bothered by them. So the exposure to the nasty or pathogenic virus, that actually is not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter is getting sick all the time after she go to the kindergarten. I don't think that will help her. I mean, yeah, so it's a lot of morbidity, and in a severe case, they kill people, but we have vaccine to prevent
Yeah.
from those preventable disease. So without vaccine, our longevity should be cut short. And actually, because of vaccine, we live long. So
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so now people don't agree or fully in certain country, but yes. So so I think so that's against longevity. And there are other example. Actually, the flights is by itself is actually not promoting longevity. As we discussed, flight is highly metabolic stressful, can cause a lot of damage, reactive
Yeah.
oxygen species, injury, inflammation. So all of this would exacerbate or accelerate aging, right? Yeah. So actually, I always call bats with a high risk of having premature aging or early aging, but they still live long. So this is counterintuitive. So that is actually very strong phenotype. Yeah. So as a scientist, I'm very fascinated and by the bats biology and how they achieve that during the adaptation. What are the changes they manage to do to allow them to be so uniquely successful? Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. Do you think that the environment in bats with relation to viruses, does it affect viral evolution and mutation rates? Is that a factor also? Do viruses evolve differently in bats than they do in, say, humans?
You're talking about the best ecological environments and the habitats. So yeah, certainly I think bats are so now we are more talking about the special bioreservoir status of bats, right? So
Yeah.
that have many factors. So environmental is one of them. So and then sociological factors. So bats are very social, right?
Right.
In our Singapore, we have a bat facility, and now we are growing the bat facility. Now we have close to almost 200 bats, but they all live together in a one corner. We provide them with a huge cage, right? Huge
Yeah.
cage, multi-meter huge cage. But they always cluster together, live together, right? It's all crowded, such a crowded environment, such a crowded space in the corner. So
Okay.
that means they're super social, meaning they have a huge density and they are very interactive, right? So that's allow them to spread the virus to each others and they allow the virus also evolve, especially when the bats are not bothered by them. The virus are just infecting them. It's like an incubator, right? So reservoir, right? So they just keep replicating, mutating, and until one day you jump to human, or jump to other mammals, then they will feel sick because they never exposed to this such a diversity of viruses or such different viruses. So yeah, so in that sense, I think sociology environment, yes, because they are only mammal, they can fly. They can fly around long distance, different regions, right? Just like a human have a flight, we can take airplane. Therefore, the transmission is so much faster, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
epidemic is so hard to prevent due to the travel. So they have the travel ability as well. Of course, the habitats, right? Because of the travel, the flyability, they can expose to so many big area of environments and also different type of environments. So these are the factors that are maybe not biological, right? Environmental factors, but it definitely contribute to their special viral reservoir status, we believe. Yeah, very good point.
Yeah. Interesting. Are there good? You mentioned you have a colony. Are there good established animal models in bats now for doing things like virus testing?
Yeah, I would say the bats are not that established compared to other mammals. I mean, there
Huh.
are a few labs in the world, in the U.S., here. So we have a few places in China. So they do some challenges, but definitely not very established. Meaning, we don't have a full set of tools that people use in human mice, such as antibodies and things like that, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's pretty hard to. I mean, we can do it. Just that the challenge is that it's very hard to compare between bats and us or bats and mice because the viruses tend to infect different cells, different extent, different way, and different kinetics. So a little bit hard to compare. So for me, because I'm really interested in immunology and biology. So to draw a conclusion, what's the key difference? The comparison is pretty challenging. But doing a challenge study, as long as you have a colony, you have a facility that contain the virus accordingly, that can be done. That can be done. So, but the harder one, of course, is to how do you measure all the response reliably? Yeah, so it has to be very challenging because we don't have all the fancy antibody people have for human. Of course, now recently we have some, of course, now recently it's getting better due to the availability of the omics, the sequencing tools. Expensive though, but if you have the funding and you design the good experiments, you can collect the sample to go for the omics, proteomics, single cell sequencing, which give you unbiased and then comprehensive understanding of their immune response. Yeah, so that can be done. Yeah, but that's not. But of course, another challenge is to set up the colony. So the bat colony, they don't breed as easy as the mice. So very precious baby, 1 to 2 baby per year, long gestation time, long sexual maturity time. So that's another barrier, right? A challenge, and you need a lot of funding and support to even breed them and maintain them. Yeah, so I would say you can do it, and there are a few places that are doing, including ourselves. Just that there's quite a few barriers to do it well and do it in a bigger scale.
It's also quite a few species, right? Like more than 1,000 different species or
Yes.
something. How do you decide on which ones to focus on?
Yeah, so 1,400 species and more. So such a diverse. So second biggest mammalian order, right? After rodent, which people do not realize, and of course there's a few reasons how to choose. There's a few factors into which one to choose, but actually there's one practical reason is that which are not extinct, right? Which are not protected. Yeah, so we have. So because again we go back to the ecological factors. So bats are very important for pollination and in ecology. So this is very important. So we can only deal with those bats that are more abundant. Yeah. So that left is smaller sets, and within that smaller set, we try to select those that have history or evidence of harboring viruses or hosting viruses. And then another factor is that another practical factor is that it's easy to breed. Yeah, so because they're so diverse, they can eat fruits, they can eat nectar, yeah, they can eat insect, or they can eat, drink blood, right? Vampire bats. So that's very different, right? So for Singapore, we chose these bats that eat nectar eating. So we have a nectar diet that can be purchased commercially from for those feeding the birds, the nectar eating birds, right? So we have that, and then we provide them with a buffet of fancy fruits, even better than what I eat every day. So, so this is easier, right? So, for those that insect eating bats, they will be very, very challenging because you have to provide what they left, the insect, the worms, and so there's a lot of practical challenges to breed those bats. So these are the factors determine which one we choose. So we end up choosing mostly fruit bats or nectar eating bats. And then usually bigger size, which allow us to do more experiments and have more materials, and also less protected, or rather not endangered. Yeah.
You have flying foxes in Singapore?
I think in the Malaysia region and Australia more. Yeah. So the one we have is Ionicturus nectar eating bats. Yeah. So we are not directly dealing with flying fox, but Lympha was when he was in Australia. Our foundational model is the black flying fox in Australia, which is uh, carrier of henipavirus, Hendra and Nipah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's a pretty kind of shockingly wide number of viruses that infect bats, right? Like you mentioned filoviruses, coronaviruses, Hendra, Nipah. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting aspect, I think, or to me anyway, that such a wide range of viruses infect bats. Is that unusual? I mean, like compared to mice, for example. I mean, we have trouble in our work finding good animal models for some viruses, just because they don't broadly
Okay.
infect all, lab animals. Is it something you run into, or?
I see. So I guess the diversity of the viruses, actually you're talking about also susceptibility, receptors, etc.
Yeah,
So I will say, I think, so I think that's why that certain bats are famous for certain viruses, right? So such
yeah,
as Rhinophilus bats are famous for corona, right? Flying fox
yeah.
are famous for Hendra. So there's a reason. I think what you mentioned is one of the factors. So I think the receptor and the susceptibility, I think that's one. And also this geographical reason. And also their lifestyle reasons. So there's a multi-factor contribution. I think that so you are right. So for them, even coronaviruses, right, they infect certain bats much better than other bats, right? So that allow them
I
to be
see.
a better reservoir. But at the same
Yeah,
time, even though they have some preference, but still collectively or within that bat groups or across the bat species, they still carry many more viruses. I think this is
yeah.
a paper published in Nature. They compile all the viruses. So there was a debate, right, Rick? So there was a debate a bit in this field. I mean, Lympha was the champions suggesting that the bats are special reservoir for a long time, right? But then people in the field, they don't fully agree, right? Because I mean, where's the evidence, right? Because this could be a research bias, right? It could be, And then there was a paper in Nature quite a few years ago. They compiled all the zoonotic viruses in all the mammals. So they compiled and statistically show that bats are carrying more viruses per species, meaning normalized by bat species. Uh, more virus species per bat species or per mammal species
Okay.
than any other mammal,
Yeah,
including rodent, right? So that's statistical. Of course, this also they adjust and control for research bias, study bias, sampling bias, things like that. So I think that's a more so-called, and then that was from the group that they don't agree with us. So that's pretty convincing. But I think the difference is not like a 10 times, 20 times. It's just significant, but not many-fold.
I see.
I think it's what you mentioned could be a factor, right? Because they may not susceptible to all the viruses, so I think that can restrict sometimes the relationship with the viruses. But at the same time, because they don't get sick, they always can get infected, and the virus can adapt to them, right? So they can become more productive and they become more susceptible during the evolution or co-evolution. I think that's a good important factor.
Yeah,
In
it's an
our study.
interesting
Mm.
kind of contrast there between, big reservoir for a lot of viruses, and yet they don't get sick. So they don't, yeah. It's an interesting thing to me. Do you think, have you looked at, on the immunology side, have you looked at like heat shock proteins and those sorts of things?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
autophagy, or
Yeah. So those are all these very important areas. So we haven't gone into very details, but but both of them you mentioned, we have some related works, right? So heat shock protein, we discovered that the Hisha protein is basally high, which is not too surprising because as we know, bats can tolerate such a high temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they must find a way to protect themselves from dying. Yeah, so
Sure.
from
Yeah.
such a high stress. So you are right. So we have a two paper on that. One is showing just in a cell level, Hisha protein is just so much higher and basally, yeah. So that protect the cells and the animals from heat shock. And we also go beyond that to prove bat are really protected from heat stress by putting the bat into the incubator, right? So into the incubator with a 40 plus degree.
Yeah.
And then we put the mice also into the incubator side by side.
Okay.
And the result is not surprising. All the mice died
Sure.
under heat stress, but bats, all of them survive. And they are not
Interesting.
really bothered by them. They are not really stressed. Even the cortisol didn't go up, meaning they don't even feel stress about it. Right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's very interesting because they don't even feel stressful
Okay.
under the heat stress. I mean, they deal with that maybe every day. So we have done that, and but of course we haven't figured out that how what's the mechanism allow the heat stress to be so high. And we believe that heat stress not only allow them to. This is all similar to my previous our central hypothesis, right? This heat shock is maybe is what they do to deal with high temperature, but this high heat shock protein might have other implications. So allow them to not go beyond just tolerating heat stress. Maybe allow them to, because the heat shock protein have a lot of interaction with viruses, other biological pathways. So there could be other implications. So we haven't looked into that yet. So and then that's a heat shock, and autophagy is much less studied than heat shock. We had the one collaborator who did the study showing that the autophagy seems to be enhanced in our cell line, allow them to clear the virus a bit better. Autophagy is also very important area in aging, right? So autophagy is self-clearing, self-cleaning, right? So whether autophagy is really enhanced, and whether autophagy is really enhanced, in how it is enhanced, in what cells, and also during the course of aging, whether the autophagy really play an important role to prevent age disease or age-related disease. This part we haven't really studied yet, but it's something very interesting to study.
Are there good in vitro models for bat cells, or bat cell lines that are permissive to wide cross section of viruses, or has that not really been developed yet? We still deal with a lot of cell lines from hamsters and dogs and things like that. So I'm just curious.
So we do have a lot of cell line by now, and now both primary and immortalized cells. From different tissue source, and methodology is pretty straightforward. Of course we don't have the luxury to have so many cancer cell line, established cell line in human, right? We can buy from the shelf, but it's not hard to introduce the oncogenes or mitogen in the bat cells using different methods. So I think developing cell and cell line no problem, as long as the bats we get the cell from are susceptible to this virus. We can infect them in the cells usually, no problem. Except certain cells certain viruses have very very picky kind of preference, right? For the tropism, for the cell type they infect, but usually we have no issue. And then we can usually infect with multiple type of viruses, no problem, like a positive strand, negative strand, so double-stranded RNA. So usually it's no problem. But now we want to go beyond that because organoids now is very hot. So our group and also other groups are working very hard to develop relevant organoids, like respiratory organoid, lung organoid, intestinal organoids. I think that's better mimic the real tissues that they have pretty good infection, and they can allow us to isolate new viruses or study the existing viruses. So we are developing those two as well. So they'll be even better. Of course, the most important still in vivo challenge, right? Which is still and we also on that front, we also try to go deeper, right? Because till now we do not know. They don't get sick, we know, but we don't really know which cell they infect and how do they spread the virus and what happened in vivo, right? So exactly, because nothing is happening when you take the histology, but where the virus going, right? Where did they start? This is such a fundamental question. So we want to study more, and with the advantage of having a colony with the new tools and technology available now, I think we are at a much better place at a better time to study deeper.
Is it known in the field where bats contract viruses? What I mean, do they get them from their food or from surfaces, or is that known?
Yeah, I think that really depends on the viruses, and I think there are a few transmission study. So depend on the type of virus. If it's a respiratory virus, I think they can just spread by air, right? By droplets or airborne. There are few. That's all. Yeah, the rest we just based on how we understand about virus, we don't have a strong evidence. But by the fact that they are so crowded, they living in such a crowded space and almost touching each other in such a high density, I'm sure there will be a lot of exposure. And also because they are so active, they are so well. And so if bats are sick, right? I mean, this is a bit separate topic, but if bats are sick, it's pretty easy to pick it up. Sometimes they feel a little bit sick, but they are not dying, but just feel sick. Or then usually they will be separated from the family, right? So they will stay alone, just like a human, right? They self-quarantine. Right? So, but very rare. So we see that in our colony sometimes, but usually they are in such a density. So they can do direct contact transmission, can droplet airborne.
Vectors,
and also
are there insect vectors?
Oh, yeah, depends on the viruses. So I think that is really understudied, vector-borne viruses, but most of the nasty or famous viruses are not vector-borne. Right, so the corona, henipash, fila virus, these are not really vector-borne. So that's not well studied. Yeah, but the food, you are right. The food definitely is possible. But food is more how they food, urine, and stool. Yeah. So all these potential avenue to transmit. Yeah.
Interesting. Also, you had mentioned interferon a while back there.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. Is it so? One of the functions of interferon, as I understand it, is that it can shut down protein production. So it's sort of a trigger for the innate immune system. So if bats have high levels of interferon, does that interfere with growth and development and metabolism, or it seems like it would get in the way, or not? Or maybe is that known? Or am I off track? Or?
No, it's good. It's a good point. It's a good question. Definitely. Okay, let me clarify that as well. So the interferon is also there's some misconception. So I would say so. First of all, the interferon being high is not universal. Okay, so we published a PNS very long ago showing that they are basically high in flying fox, but it only at the mRNA level. So I'm very precise here. So our discovery is at the mRNA level, they are high, but we have no protein level evidence yet. So we try to stain the antibody, didn't work. Is it because antibody didn't work or protein is not so high, right? We don't know. We can never prove it. So that's where we are stuck, right? So that's one. And then but when other groups look at other bats, then they find out, oh no, there's not really a high mRNA level even. So this high mRNA level of interferon, does it really mean there's high protein level? I don't know. We are not 100% sure. And secondly, we are pretty sure they are not universal or conserved across bats. So when they are not so conserved across bats, then sometimes I'll argue is it really most very important adaptation, right? It may or may not, right? So it may not be as significant as those universally changed pattern. So I would say interferon. So that's one point. We are not 100% sure how whether that's really significantly enhanced protein interferon level at the protein level for interferon, and how much higher. We have no solid evidence. Yeah. So for the interferon to have an effect at the basally, they must be significantly higher at the protein level. Yeah. So what you mentioned, shut down the translation and all this protective or interferon effect, usually is when our interferon got induced. But in that case, it's such a high induction, right? So our baseline is super low, and then they go really high.
Right.
Yeah, the bats are very different. Bats, even at MR level, now we go back to just MR level first because we don't know much of protein. But MR level, they are basically higher. But when they encounter infection, they just keep the same or keep slightly higher. Yeah. So it's more like a battle ready, but they don't go over responsive, or they don't go overboard, right? So actually at a peak, the bats can be actually much dampened. So whether that basal high level, there are two questions, right? Whether it's really high at the protein level. Secondly, even if it's really higher, would that be really a big implication or a biological consequence? How much they are? We don't really know yet. So I will say I don't have a complete answer for you, but this part I think we need to explore more. But it's just not very conserved across bats. And another factor is that another thing I want to clarify is that the interferon, we know that they are more about fighting the viruses directly, meaning interferon is controlling the virus in replication and the viral load.
Yeah.
But as I highlighted previously, we felt that the most important phenotype is not they control the viruses. It's that it's not about controlling virus much more efficiently or much better, meaning they clear the virus, or they even prevent the virus from replicating. It's not about that. It's about fighting. It's about the difference in the response to the viruses,
I see.
which lead to lack of disease or anti-disease. Right. So it's about the disease, rather it's less about the virus. Yeah. So it's more about the host response more than the virus itself, killing the virus itself. So therefore, interferon is more about the killing the virus or controlling the viruses.
Yeah.
Less about the host response. So therefore, that's why our lab is a little bit less focusing on the interferon. In addition to the previous reason I mentioned.
I see. Interesting. I know bats have a couple of other kind of unique traits, like echolocation and sensitivity to magnetic fields, I think, if I remember right. Is there any hint or clue that those other features have potential overlaps or impacts on bat health or immune system function or things like that, longevity?
Sorry, can I clarify what did you mention about those, the second one, sensitivity to
magnetic fields?
Oh, I see. So these are the
magnetoreception or something?
I see. So this is actually also being studied by quite a few echolocations, neurobiology, neurobehavior people.
Yeah.
So there are few, and they are doing pretty well. And with so this is maybe okay. That's a good question. So I think that's another special adaptation about their locomotions and behavior, which we do not have direct link to their health. Yeah. I think it's more about because they can. But this is still linked to the flight, though, right? Still go back to the flight hypothesis. So this all due to we all blame flight, right? So it's all due to flight. They evolve different things: good health, anti-disease, anti-aging, and also echolocation, things like that. So it's still that's still the same. But in terms of the connection with the health, we are not very sure. I don't think there's such a strong link yet. But there's a strong link with flight, right? Because and then many people in Singapore told me that, and also in other countries told me that they never see bats because they say they don't think there's a bats around them. But that's not true. in Singapore, for example, we call it garden city, right? So people expect there's no bats, but the bats are actually flying everywhere, even in near the shopping mall.
Really?
Because our Singapore is so small, we don't have much
Yeah.
rural place or natural places. The
Yeah.
bats has to stay around with us, right?
I see. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the reason why we didn't pick up is that the bats. I'll try to link back to the question because the bats are flying so differently from birds. Right? The birds have this mechanical air sac and adaptation that allow them to float, like a very elegantly
Right.
fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you dissect the bats, which I did many times, and I also dissected mice before, and I also did a human pathology before. So the organ system is the same, right? So they have the same. They don't have the mechanical except the wing. They have the wing membrane under the arms, right? That's
Yep.
all. They don't have other drastic changes in their bodies. So they have
Okay.
to fly just by power of flight, meaning they're just going to flap and they're just going to fly it, right? So when they fly, they are not like elegantly flying like birds. They actually it's very quick turn, like go up, go down, and then suddenly turn left and right because they are using the arm to power flight, right? To
I
do the
see.
power flight. So therefore, imagine they have to have such a good orientation and locomotion, localization ability because they also fly at the night.
Oh, right. Right. Sure.
Imagine they'll get injured like crazy, and they don't have a doctor like us to treat them.
Yeah.
So I'm just explaining. I try to explain why they have evolved. So other neurological, neural behavior or neural related kind of adaptation. So for them because they also need them. And then the benefit of that, I think they may not directly link to their own health, but they link to us, still link to a human because people study them to study how they navigate at the night and so precisely and so accurately and and then they have terrible eyesight, right? So they can do it so efficiently, and then in the brain they have additional region to allow them to locate and orientate themselves and to navigate. So that can be mechanical, engineer stuff, right? And then there's a lot of potential lesson we can learn to apply in our society. Yeah. So on that front, it's still very valuable studies. Yeah.
Very interesting. From your perspective, in the research you've seen and done, what do you think are the most promising potential pathways to, let's say, drugs or medicines or therapies that might be helpful for humans, either maybe on the viral front or on longevity front or other things that you've seen?
I see. So that I do not have I guess that's another very biased opinion because I mean
Yeah.
from until now, I guess we have this bad biotech company that is 2 years ago they launched with 100 million US dollar startup fund, showing how people are paying attention to the translational potential, and that company is 100% back focused, meaning they only
Okay.
interested in discovery from bats with relevant to human health, right? So of
Okay.
course our IP that around inflammasome is the first one that they licensed. So for till now, the inflammation drugs, anti-inflammation drug, of course, is the most promising one and the most advanced one. So I
Okay.
think there will be more to come. But so for now, of course, inflammation drug is the most promising one. But if you ask me about the future, what else, right? People always ask me, why not just focus on inflammation for the rest of career? That's pretty safe, right? Inflammation is so
Yeah.
important, and we are already dealing with how to apply our anti-inflammation drug in following disease such as Parkinson, dementia, metabolic like diabetes, cardiovascular, skin, and liver. So that's pretty broad already, right? So, but I always say that the reason why I'm more interested in discovering new targets or new approach, new strategy to treat human disease because I believe strongly that what we discover is really scratching the surface, right? So because when we do similar adaptation or changes in the mice. For example, we dampen inflammation in the mice, dampen inflammasome in the mice, which I did in our recently the Cell paper.
Mm-hmm.
They don't live like bats, right? They just live a little bit longer and a little bit less disease.
Right.
But bats are living 3 to 4 times longer, right? Not three
Wow.
to 4
Yeah.
4% longer.
Yeah.
So I would say evidence based statistically there's a 90% or 95% why they live long without chronic disease are unknown. So that big gap. So you're asking me what is the next or most important drug target? So that's a $1 billion question, right? Or $1 billion question. So I don't see I know the answer. I have some, of course, certain top favorite topics or areas that I think that could be very interesting, but none of them have evidence. So I think maybe in 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years time, if you ask me again, or if you have a chance to talk again, I can give you more concrete answers. Yeah, but I believe that phenotypically speaking, we know they live long without chronic disease. So I thinking as a clinician, I feel like the biggest unmet need is those incurable disease in human.
Yeah.
That all of our
do bats have increased resistance to bacteria as well as viruses?
Very good question as well. So yeah, recently I got in contact with a few collaborators to study that. So first of all, I believe bats are not special, as far as we know, as a reservoir for non-virus pathogen.
Okay.
Such as bacterial and fungus, right? So, but the caveat is that we haven't done enough work in this area, right? So, but just based on the observation, we believe that we always talk about a special viral reservoir. We always put a virus, right? We don't never say microbial pathogen. We don't never make it bigger, right, or broader. And I think there are definitely a reason. So it's so hard to find a bat that died from viruses. I mean, the only exception is rabies, and then a few other rare viruses. Rabies is the most famous example. But rabies kill bats by 50%.
Okay.
But rabies kill us 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So 100%, 50%, that's a huge difference to me.
Yeah. So that's right.
So that's viruses, right? That's including the experimental challenging them, naturally observing them. So that's so hard. Bacteria is not hard. So if you Google, actually, you can find quite a few reports saying that bats seems to be dying from bacteria. There's so much bacteria when they found that, right? And recently, one of the collaborators from Cambridge contacted me to collaborate, and because she told me that in her colony, there's quite a few Staph aureus skin infection, and some of them fall quite thick, meaning very terrible infection, almost died. Right. So I'm but this is an anecdotal example, right? So I cannot give you a very conclusive one. But I would say, and the fungus, I'm sure you heard the white nose syndrome, that fungus infection of bats. So there are examples that really make bats suffer for other non-viruses, bacteria and fungus. So therefore, I believe that they are not special. And if you ask me, is there any reason how to explain that? I give you again, go back to my inflammasome. I give you another fun fact, right? So not fun fact, it's an interesting aspect. So inflammasome is pro-disease in the context of viruses.
Okay.
Meaning, if you dampen inflammasome, you have a less viral disease, usually speaking, okay? But in the context of bacteria and fungus, the inflammasome is more anti-disease, protective. So if you dampen inflammasome, usually lead to more morbidity and mortality in bacterial fungus infection.
Okay.
Now you see, right? So this is one. I only give you one because I only know this. This is more solid evidence. So that potentially can contribute to what we have seen. But bats might have evolved different way to still balance that, right? Still counterbalance that. So so that's what we know so far, I believe. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's more than just body temperature. It's not like, I mean, in humans, or you get a fever to fight off the bugs. So it's, something more, it sounds like. Very interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking with you. Very interesting subject. And I wish you well with your research. Any final comments?
No, I just want to thank you for having me, and it's a great pleasure to talk to you and to share some of our bad work, and hopefully more to share in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah, look forward to your future work. Very
Thank you. Thank
interesting.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Antiviral Frontiers. To hear more from the fascinating world of viruses, biotech, and medicine, please visit our website or find us on Spotify and YouTube and follow us to get future episodes.